It's been 6 years of podcasting, and without our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to bring these podcasts to you. So I want to thank today's sponsors. And first off, we have the Pretentious Pickle Company of 190 Water Street in Plymouth. If you haven't had a chance to get down there, go down and check out what they make. They have everything pickled you can imagine, from pickled beets to carrots to mushrooms to onions to Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. They even have pickled or pickle flavor cotton candy, I should say. They make it fresh there every day, and you can go in there and check out what they have to offer. And if you're not in the Plymouth area, you can go to pretentiouspickle.com and check out what they have to offer there as well, and they will ship it out to you. Their stuff is delicious. You should check it out, and they are big fans of ours, and we are big fans of theirs. So thank you to the Pretentious Pickle Company for sponsoring today's episode. And our second sponsor today is Moonrise Cinemas. Moonrise Cinemas is a new drive-in in Plymouth, right on the Plymouth-Kingston line. They are located at 428 Court Street in Plymouth, Mass. And they offer a great selection of movies. You can go. It's very family-friendly. I went and checked out the Goonies there. They've had Marvel movies, a wide variety of stuff. And they're really starting to expand. They have had the Rocky Horror Picture Show this coming year. They're doing music on Thursday nights. On Wednesdays are going to be 420 friendly events. So make sure you check out what they have to offer. moonrisecinemas.com. It's a great venue. They have a beer garden. They have their own food. Their food's phenomenal. And they're bringing back their French toast, which I'm very excited about. So make sure you check out what they have to offer, moonrisecinemas.com. And if you use code Inebri-art when purchasing tickets, you'll get 10% off. So make sure you go to moonrisecinemas.com to get your tickets for movies, concerts, and more. And use code Inebri-art for 10% off on your purchase. And now let's jump right into the podcast. Welcome back, Inebri-ites. This is Andy of the Inebri-art podcast, as always. And we're always looking to talk to creative individuals of every make and model. And we've never had a producer on before until today. Welcome to the show, Daemon Hillin.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you, Andy.
It's like, I think everyone in their life has seen, produced by or executive producer, and I don't know if everyone, including myself, exactly knows exactly what a producer does, who they are, how they get into the film industry. So can you just give us like producer 101?
Yeah, sure. So the producer is the catalyst for all that creative genius that you see up on the screen. So okay. we're the ones in the back, like moving everybody, pushing everybody forward, putting all the deals together in order to bring that to the screen. So, for instance, like what I do usually is a produced by credit, which is, It's usually like my baby. I'll find a log line, a script, and then we'll develop it, we'll sell it, we'll cast it, we'll finance it, we'll make it, we do everything from the beginning to the very end. And for us, it's a very long process. It's years, because even though after, a film's released, we're still there. I'm still selling in different countries. I'm still releasing in Spain and Italy. And, so I'm with these movies for years.
So you're kind of like the Marines of the movie industry, first in, last out.
100%. Yeah. And we end up getting like we get all the problems.
Yeah.
All the problems. Everything comes our way. It's fixed. We jump through fiery hoops all day long. There's a problem, we fix it, or we find a way to fix it. everything from just like losing locations or losing cast members and a director, which happened on The Long Night, which we just shot. It was devastating. It was hard, a lot of time spent. But we're always the ones there fixing and then providing for the director to be creative.
Mm-hmm. And, I just have in my head, like when you lose a director or an actor, that it's just kind of like those old cliche scenes of like the taxi cab parked on the side of the road with the person just sitting there and watching the money scroll by.
Oh, yes. And the sense of dread, like the little knives going in your heart and your stomach.
Yeah.
You can't sleep. You're just like, I remember, on The Long Night, I would be up late because we were trying to fix a problem, like huge problem. And it would be multiple producers on the phone. It would be myself, Ryan R. Johnson from Sprockefeller, and Vasily Bernhardt. And we would all three just be trying to figure out solutions. How are we going to do this? What are we going to do? Who's going to direct?
Yeah.
Who's going to star in the movie? But we're already had spent so much money. And how do you even recover that? It's daunting. It puts you in a really bad situation because at the end of the day, you're losing days. You're losing like physical shoot days.
Yeah.
And you don't get a lot of physical shoot days on indie films. You just don't. There's not enough money, so the days that you thought you have, you don't have now. And it's a daunting task, but always it's a team. It takes an army to make these things. It takes a lot of effort and money to get it, to fix these problems.
And I feel like that's got to be harder to then get a new director onto the project because you're like, oh, by the way, we lost 10 shooting days.
Yes.
Good luck, buddy.
It is. And then, but see, that's why, in this situation, we immediately called Rich Ragsdale because Rich Ragsdale, we had just finished a film called Ghost House with him, and it did really, really well. And we knew that we had a very short window and we needed somebody 100% that had the creative vision to fix everything.
Yeah.
And still get the performances out of cast without like freaking everybody out, and we knew that Rich could do that. We were 100% confident in Rich and, his team, the people that he has behind him, his DP, to his brother, Kevin, that is always creatively supporting him, to his writer that he brings on. We knew that we had a team that we could bring in and help reshape what was to what is even better.
Yeah.
Because the movie that we have now versus the movie that we started with is 10 times the film. So I couldn't be more happy with how this has turned out. And there was a lot of struggle on this. There was a ton of it. But at the end of the day, just everybody coming together and doing what they do best with their qualities, we have this great product now.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like sometimes when you're put into those situations where you have a crazy short time frame or you don't have the money or the whatever items you need to make your project, be it visual art or music or movies or whatnot, I feel like sometimes it puts you into it kind of reminds me of when you cram for a test in school. Like I always did better on the tests that I crammed for than the ones that I had plenty of time to study for. I don't know why. It's just something about that immediacy, having to complete something in a very short amount of time, that I think just pushes you to a higher level of performance.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. So, some of the best films that I've executed on are the ones that have been so chaotic. Yeah. That you're like, how are we even going to finish this? Whether is it like zombie apocalypse shutting your movie down, COVID?
Yeah.
Or is it a 3-meter flood coming down and ruining your set and you have to change everything? Those situations put you in these, like, you creatively come up with solutions that are so like far out there and so different that they actually elevate what you're doing. Yeah. And I think that everybody has like that adrenaline pumping because of what they're going through, and they actually like they perform in a higher and they deliver it within a higher realm,
And it sucks being in those moments. Like no one's ever like, this is going to be awesome. You're like, just shoot me in the face. Correct. But I feel like when I'm in those situations, I try to think, being like, this is a story that I'm going to tell. Like on a day that everything's perfect and goes great and everyone's happy, very rarely are those the ones that you talk about. It's always like, let me tell you this story, sit down. It takes a while. It's a disaster, but
Yeah, that's right. At the time, it doesn't feel that great. At the time, you're like, you're breathing deep and you're just kind of like hanging your head and you're like, I got to pull through this. It's where that perseverance comes from. Yeah. That I like. And that's one of the things that I love too about the industry is that, you have battles that you can overcome, and that it shows character and strength by pooling together with a group of people to overcome these obstacles. It's very fulfilling.
It's funny because you're like, oh, with strength and I'm always more like, oh, I'm just not smart enough to know that I can't do it. So I just somehow get it done.
Yeah. Oh my God. The perspective.
Yeah. But how did you even get into production? Like, do you go to school for that? Is like when you're a little kid being like, I want to produce Ghostbusters, not star in it.
No, you know what? I didn't go to school for it. I've just been a stubborn person. I found something that I loved. So, my grandfather was a storyteller. Mm-hmm. I always wanted to tell stories, but not write the story. I wanted to help create a story with a group of creative individuals. I didn't even understand what this was. I didn't even know that there was a job like this until I was 27 years old, and I fell into it. I come from real estate and finance, and in 2008, markets crashed. So I moved to LA to live with my sister and sleep on her couch or the floor, whatever was available to me here in LA. And, I was approached by a dear friend, real estate investor, and he's like, let's put together something in Hollywood. Let's do a documentary. And, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do it. I don't know what to do. So like, I go to Craigslist and I'm like, let's find a camera operator. And then the camera operator is like, well, who's running sound? And I'm like, okay, clearly we need sound. That's the next post I'm going to put up. And then like, who's handling your data intake so I literally put together my first production on Craigslist. That's kind of weird, but yeah, that's me. I did it. I realized I know nothing about this industry, right? Yeah. I just kind of willed it into existence. The documentary that we made, it kind of like went off and it actually became something small. And there was a trajectory that kept me so interested in it. And I love this question you asked, because what happened then is I met my mentor, Ryan R. Johnson, and he's the other producer on this movie. So the long night, I'm actually doing, I'm a producer with my mentor for the very first time years later.
Oh, that's awesome.
But we circle back years later, and this is the first movie that we did together. So it's very cool. Very cool.
I think that is so important. At least it has been in my life. Inebri-art's been my second business. But was to always find like that person and go, oh, I want to do what they're doing. And frequently I would kind of get to know them and get a little inside look and go, oh, they're not doing quite as good as I thought. I want to go do what that guy, and like, I kind of would direct myself into finding that person who's really delivering on what I wanted to do. And, I have a mentor now, and and she is in a completely different industry, but she's got a phenomenal business sense and that drive that you can be the smartest person in the world. If you don't have drive, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. I love the idea of a mentor, because it's really important in whatever you're doing, whether it's producing, writing, mechanic, you always need to have somebody that is like much better than you.
Yeah.
Like take you under their wing and explain to you. And I'm always better at learning real world versus studying a book. So, I didn't go to school for film, and I respect all the people that did go to school for film, but that's not my story. My story is different. My story is I wanted to do it. I have a love for the business, and I have a love for the arts and entertainment. And I blended the two, and I just ran with it. And I learned a lot with mistakes. I mean, I have countless mistakes. Yeah. I have years of it, but you get better and you get better. And each year you get more confident in what you're doing, and you really learn to become a producer, a real producer.
And I experience it all the time. I've talked to many people, including someone earlier today, with dealing with imposter syndrome. Is that something like you have to deal with? And like, how do you cope with that kind of feeling of like, especially on that first film when you're getting people on Craigslist and they're like, oh, who's doing sound? You're like, oh shit, sound, right? Like, how do you deal with that kind of I don't belong here mentality while being there?
Yeah, no, I understand that. So I didn't have that until like my first real movie. Yeah. Like, so that was a documentary. That was like running gun, following people around. And I just looked the part and people thought I was a producer. But I had a real insecurity on my first movie. It was in Thailand, A Stranger in Paradise. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. I did the packaging side of it.
Yeah.
I brought in a sales company. I got the talent, I got brought on, and I show up on set, and I don't know what to do as a physical producer. Yeah. I don't know. So,
and you're overseas, that had to make it even worse.
I put on like a walkie-talkie, and I'm like running around, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I just try to look busy.
Yeah.
I was such a freaking idiot. I tried though, I tried. It's funny because like nobody in that movie really knew what they're doing. We were all kind of green, just like running around. And you learn. So, I mean, but that was probably it's that feeling. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Just please don't ask me a real question. Please don't ask me a real question.
Yeah. It was like, don't ask me anything about like scheduling or like, because when you're looking at the schedule, like real, like day out of days, or like you're talking about man days, or even lighting equipment, or like what you're calling for. I didn't know this stuff. I was like, what? So you're just like, yeah, okay.
Let me get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Googling what are man days.
I know, totally. Yeah. What do I do here? So yeah.
But I do love that kind of fake it till you make it mentality, because I mean that's our Uber here at Inebri-art is we just kind of wing it and
wing it. Yeah.
I was saying earlier that our first podcast, our microphone, I think we paid $60 for it. And now that we look back, we're like, God, the sound quality is terrible. And my producer editor is like, I don't think we're using the microphone correctly. I think we're using the microphone on the computer and not the microphone we had hooked up to the computer.
That's great. I probably would have done that too.
Yeah. But it's you don't know until you do and you try. And like, I love how you said that you had someone just reach out and be like, let's do a documentary. I mean, that's almost literally how we ended up doing comedy shows. It's like someone during the pandemic, I was talking to a comic friend. I'm like, let's do an online show because I'm bored. And
right on.
Now we have a ton of them, and I didn't do it on purpose. I don't know how to do it.
Some of the best things in life, like just fall, like if the universe puts them in your lap, like it just falls into place. It's like being prepared for that moment to succeed, being prepared to like I want to do this.
And kind of seeing that opportunity when it's presented, you know?
Yep.
So, I'm assuming you feel more comfortable now producing these films.
Yes. Like 34 movies later.
Yeah,
I do.
And you have a production company too now. So, I mean,
yes. Yeah. My production company, I have, I think 7-8 movies under my production company right now. Feel very confident, you know. I did work my way up. I line produced for a while for other people.
Yeah.
I did production.
Now, what is the difference between line producing and producing?
Yeah,
I'm sorry if I'm asking you basic questions.
Yeah, a line producer is, they're a very important producer that is managing the budget. So they're creating basically the numbers for your movie. They're creating the budget based on a schedule, based on all the creative feedback. Like, I need 75 extras. I need this. I need this location. I need 10 cars, a boat, and a dolphin. So you gotta go and you gotta, put like a dollar and cents to everything.
Yeah.
And then you have to manage it and then make sure that you're coming in on time and on budget. So, I made my first 2-3 movies, and then I really started getting into, like, I would get brought on to people's projects to go make them in Thailand.
Yeah.
So they're like, I want to shoot in Thailand. I'm like, okay, well, and then I would produce the movie for them in Thailand. Okay. Now they would bring me the money and I would put it together, execute the physical production of the project. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I give it back to them and then I say, bye-bye. Right.
So is it in Thailand? Is it because it's cheaper over there? Like, why specifically Thailand?
Yeah. Thailand is a very exotic location. It's like a named cast member.
Yeah.
It's dynamic. You're shooting in this beautiful place. So it acts as a character in the movie.
Okay.
All right. And then cost of labor is, my production value is probably 5 times what I would get. $1 million here is $5 million in production there.
Okay.
It's huge. So people would want that production value, bring me their projects. I would execute the project for them and then give it back to them. So, like, on my credits, you'll see line producer, or consulting producer.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. Now, the produced by or the producer credit is the full on from the beginning through the finance. I'm not like, so basically I'm doing everything on one side and seeing it all the way through to the end. Right. That's a full producer versus, a line producer that just comes in, helps, is going to execute the project, put it in a hard drive, and then hand it off, So
then I'll follow up with the aftermarket and all that stuff.
Yeah, correct.
So I just had a question in my head and it's just friggin' disappeared. So now you're producing your own stuff, and what is the biggest lesson that you've learned from your mentor that's kind of carried over?
Wow. I learned something on every show or movie that I make. We're put in very unique situations. I think one of the hardest things have been having to work with, like, you learn to work with government, because we have to work a lot with government. We have to work a lot with, like, local authorities.
Oh, okay.
With
like actual governments.
Yeah. Actual government.
Okay, yeah.
Like, you're having to, it's like you're going into a place and you're having to be the face of a company and you're talking to, like, government officials. And that was, like, kind of a little daunting at first. You're like, it's kind of, you're outside of your bubble a little bit. Mm-hmm. You hope you don't screw up.
Yeah.
So that was something that I had to learn to deal with and get accustomed to, because it's not like a normal thing that everybody does.
Right.
I mean, some people maybe, if you're government but having to, like, if I don't get this permit and if I don't get this in time, I don't have a movie.
Right.
So that one person with that one signature is totally like I'm at their beck and call pretty much right now.
And they may not always be the most pleasant person to work with.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I recently had someone refer to me as a producer because we put on comedy shows and vendor events and all these other things.
Yeah.
And, I've always kind of said that I do what I do. I was never the best artist, but I was the most organized artist. Yeah. And I spoke both languages, air quotes around that, where I can talk to business people, but I can talk to the creative person as well.
Yeah. That's the mind of a producer.
Yeah. It's like,
that's what you have to, that's what it is. You have to speak two languages. And, sometimes it's very difficult, it's very, if somebody is too artistic in the film side, I can't relate to them as well. And I have to have somebody else in my staff deal with them.
Yeah.
Because I'm very big picture. If a creative's trying to get like all like minuscule details with me, I lose focus.
I always find that the creative people tend to be a little flaky and, not always on time and, those kind of things. That to me is the biggest struggle that I personally have to deal with on the creative side.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I feel strange. And this maybe I'm curious to see if this is the same way for you. Because when people talk about like directors and actors, they talk about egos and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I feel the egos are far more on the other side, the businesses and the town offices and those, I only work with the towns. I don't work with Thailand, but I feel like the egos are far bigger on that side. Do you kind of have a similar experience?
For me, it's egos are everywhere. And, some of the people that deserve the egos don't have it.
Right. Yeah.
They're the kindest, most amazing people. And then you run into people that definitely should not have an ego. And they're the biggest pricks you've ever seen, and they cause the most problems. And they think that they're so good, and they're not. And then you just have to drop them.
Yeah. And I mean, if you can, like, to me, that's the biggest issue. Sometimes those egos are on the other side and you have to deal with them. That's always the tricky part. I finally remembered what that question I was going to ask earlier. So as a producer, how much creative input do you have on these things? Because I mean, you have the writers, directors, actors. Do you get to kind of put your creative 2 cents in, or is that some projects and not others?
No. All the projects, I'll get to be as creative as I want. I stick to what I know. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, I stick to the creativity on the lead cast. Okay. Like the lead cast is very important for me to be, who's going to play this role, and this role. I have to be looking at that from a business standpoint and from a creative standpoint. And then also blending that with the director. I'm looking at like, where are we going to shoot this? Where is there a tax credit? The cost to make the project. So creatively, I'm very involved with where the movie's going to go, who's going to be in the movie. And then everything else, I really let the director run with, as long as it stays within the parameters that we give them.
Yeah.
Right. Because, we have a budget and we have a schedule. It's got to stay within budget and it's got to stay in the schedule. And if it doesn't, that's when we start, dropping the hammer a little bit and having to move things.
So, and, you said you did Ghost House, you did Hellblazers last year. Do you predominantly stick to horror genre?
No, you know what? Horror is a genre that translates to, if you're Japanese, French, Irish, Italian, American, whatever, people feel horror. People feel scary stuff, right? Mm-hmm. They know what it's like to have a monster chasing them, or an axe murderer, or a ghost, or people. You don't have to speak that language to understand what that is. Okay, so blending that, having a universal product And then you have, that's more in line with like business, because you could sell it everywhere, and you have an audience, people understand it. Versus like if it's comedy, people don't understand, like American humor versus French humor versus Japanese humor, and then another is like the action movie, because I do a lot of action movies.
Mm-hmm.
I really got into action. Once I learned how to like make movies is when I started doing action. So, to your question, I've gone more towards the action because I like action more than I like horror.
Okay.
But I make them both.
Do you ever have scripts that kind of come across your desk that you want to make, but you're just like, I don't see the financials of it? And
all the time. I have scripts right now that are phenomenal that I can't make because it costs too much. Like, and when I say cost too much, I can't get, the only way that I can make this movie is if I have with that kind of budget, is I have like an A-list star attached to this movie.
You have like an Avengers budget.
And yeah, it's like, we're not going to, it's like, even you're putting $1 million offers out and you're still not getting the actors that you need to make that movie. I can't make that movie. It's like a movie is so big, like it's a kid's movie, right? So I don't have a lot of kids that have the value that I'm going to be able to make this huge budget movie. I have to rely on the older adults, right? So I got to rely on a mom or a sister, brother, dad, or like a bad guy. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But we tried all those offers. We went out, mom, dad, enemy, they all passed. So, you go down a list and we just couldn't get cast. And because of that, I have to shelve the project. I can't make it right now. I can maybe make it in 5 years, people are going to understand more of what we're trying to make versus like what's going on right now. So you shelve it, rename it, and come back with it.
And that's one of those interesting things. Like I the more I learn about the movie industry, the more I realize like how long it takes a movie from, just because you sold a script doesn't mean it's going to be like out next year.
No, not at all. So recently, in the past like year, my sales company and I have been just kind of brainstorming these ideas. We're like, let's make a World War II movie. And then we literally write it right away, and then we go shoot it. So we're just really in touch with the marketplace, saying, what does the marketplace need? We know what it needs. We find out what it is. I get the writer director ready. I go to cast, boom, we're making it. So it's a machine. It's like it's a filmmaking factory.
How has all the streaming platforms like changed things for you? Because I feel like, based on what you said, you must have been kind of like right at the dawn of those kind of services.
Yeah, I've been. I think that for myself and as an indie producer, it's actually helped me tremendously. Right. So like I just had 2 movies release on as a Tubi original, Fast Vengeance with DMX. And then we just had Hellblazers with like Bruce Dern, Adrian Barbeau, Tony Todd, Billy Zane, and they have allowed us to make these movies and continuously keep continuing to make movies. Yeah. Because they're buying our product. And if people aren't buying your product, then, you kind of stop. You're like, but all the different platforms, I think, work very well for the independent producer, and it's a blessing. I'm so grateful for, all these distributors, Do
you particularly have one that I don't know. Do I not want you to name favorites? But I mean, is there one that's easier to work with or that you have a preference for?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have different size budgets. Yeah. And the budgets of different sizes go to different distributors. Right. So, I'm not saying anything in particular order. Okay. But, I love the Shout Factory. and like Saban's one of my favorite. They're one of my go-tos.
I don't even know them.
Yeah, Saban. Check them out. Saban, Saban. Saban, Tubi originals.
Yeah,
they're great. They're buying now. So, I have my go-tos that are when we create something, we go directly to them. We go directly to a few people, and then some people are like, I love it, or they're like, I hate it, and we know where to go.
Yeah. And I mean, that's such a classic story. I mean, like any huge successful movie or show, you can kind of always be like, oh yeah, it was turned down by, this person, this person, this person, and this person before it ever got made. So I think it's just kind of nice to know that there's more avenues out there for people to kind of get discovered, and everybody wants that original or, exclusive or only on Amazon Prime or whatever. So it just seems like there's more space for creators to kind of be seen.
There is. It really helps out. And you get a lot of different kinds of genres, right? Some people specialize in, it's like, hey, you got your Hallmark channel. Hey, you have your, you got your Shudder, you got your Tubi, they're uniquely diverse, and they give filmmakers the opportunity, to get their product out there.
Do you feel that things that may have been pitched in the past? So I just finished watching Squid Games and was, I'm late to the game.
Yeah.
But it was kind of in my head. I'm like, this would have never been on HBO like back in the day. Obviously, it would never be on, regular television. And it's so good. Do you think, having so many options is increasing the quality of stuff that's put out?
Yeah, I also think it was a pandemic because there was a shortage on product, that distributors started opening their eyes a little bit and saying, what else creatively can we put up? Because there's not enough content, because a lot of content wasn't made for a while.
Yeah.
And I remember during the pandemic, where if you were making a movie, everybody wanted it. Everybody's like, wait, what are you making? Okay, yeah, we're going to take it. It's a pandemic. You could barely you got to quarantine a crew. You have to, it's hard to make a movie during a pandemic. And I think that the distributors started opening their eyes and looking outwards to different product. And that's why you get the Squid Games.
So are there projects that you're working on now that you can talk about that we can expect to see soon?
Yeah, no. So I have a Jaws style film that I'm picture locking today. That has Trace Adkins, the country western star.
Yeah.
Nikki Whelan and Shane West. Justin Lee directed. And I've done 4 or 5 movies with Justin. Good director. And it's a practical shark film. We built a huge shark. We had puppeteers in the water moving around a shark, and it's eating people. So it's very cool. Jaws style. That's in post.
How did that work? Because I know it didn't work well for Jaws.
Believe me, that was one of the hardest movies of my life to make.
Yeah.
It was difficult. Very, very, in many, many aspects. And I just had I had a lot of government support on that. If I wasn't supported by the local communities and everything like that, I would never have been able to make that movie.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate for that. But that's that's also another one of the stories that was you really get put into the forefront of a community representing a project. And, some people like it and some people don't like it. And you have to deal with both sides.
Yeah.
You have to deal with cultural sensitivity. Sure. And respect that in all aspects. And sometimes it's very hard to deal, especially when you tonally have a certain type of film, but you never set out intentionally to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
It's just we didn't know.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of support from the state. And we powered through that.
Yeah, it's funny. You just made me there was so I live in Plymouth, Mass, and we have the second largest Thanksgiving Day parade in the country. And a couple of years ago, this is pre-pandemic, a movie studio reached out to whoever is in charge of such things around here. And they wanted to shoot a movie based around the parade. And at first it was like all this buzz being like, oh, they're going to make a movie. And then it turns out it was like a slasher horror movie.
Right.
And the town just went, nope. And we're all like, oh, that would be so cool.
Totally. That's what it is. It's like creatives, for some people, it's entertaining to watch something like this. But, if people, their hometown, it's like that. This is too close to us. They don't, you're always weighing two sides. And you're trying to be political and you don't want to hurt people's feelings. And you're trying to, it's hard to do sometimes, but we maintain.
So people can find you at HillinEntertainment.com.
Yeah, it's Hillin.
Sorry.
Hillin-entertainment.com.
And where else can they find you on socials? And
my Instagram. It's Daemon Hillin. So that's another big one for me is my Instagram, or most recent projects usually up on IMDb. And those are the main for me.
And if someone wants to get into the production world, like what would be your one bit of advice? Like, this is a must do. You must go do this to be a producer.
Yeah. So find a mentor. You find a mentor, or you find like-minded people to work with until you find that mentor. Because you can't, some people, it's just, you can't go and be in the film industry, right? You have to, it's a stepping process, Oh, and what's so interesting here is that Shannon McCannion, the casting director in this movie for The Long Night, she's the one that introduced me to Ryan Johnson.
Huh.
So it's
everyone's come full circle. Yeah.
It came full circle. So
have you had that person where you've kind of like taken them under your wing and be like, I'm going to try to be that person for them?
Sometimes I try.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes, with best intentions, I always ego gets in the way.
Yeah.
Even like when you give people opportunities and then it's like, wait, what just happened? So I've been finding that when I give people opportunities, it sometimes doesn't work out for the best.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I'm being a little more selective on what and who, you try to mold or help out.
Cool, man. This was really interesting. Like I said, we've never had a producer on. I've never spoken to a producer, so it's nice to kind of like get a completely different perspective on the industry.
Yeah, man. Well, absolutely. I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, anytime. Like anytime you got something new coming out, if you want to reach out, we'd be more than happy to get you or whoever on the show and do a little, little chit chat and a little, pressing. It's like I love the conversations, but I'm a realist. I know we're all here to kind of like promote stuff. So
yeah, I get it.
Perfect.
Well, thank you.
No problem, man. And thanks to our listeners, and we'll catch you guys again next week.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Bye. And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. So thanks again for listening.